The sun burned like molten brass over the high desert, pouring its furnace heat across a land of dust, rock, and endless horizons. Out there, where the cactus spines bristled and the prairie dogs barked at the coming shadows, a man rode slow and steady, his silhouette cut against the dying light like some stubborn figure carved into the earth itself. His name was Elias Boone, a rancher, though some would call him a drifter, others a loner. He was a man worn by wind and work, with skin toughened by sun, a jaw like chiseled stone, and eyes that carried both the weight of yesterday's sins and tomorrow's uncertainty. Elias wasn't old, not yet, 35 at most, but out on the frontier, years counted different. Every winter storm, every cattle drive, every showdown on a dusty main street etched time into a man quicker than any calendar. That evening, Elias was on his way to claim a piece of property that most men in town had laughed at, a cabin in the far reaches of Dry Creek Canyon, abandoned for near a decade, weather-beaten, haunted by whispers of Apache raids and outlaw hideouts. Folks said it wasn't worth the splinters it was made of. Elias, however, had bought it from the county office for 12 cents, the lowest bid ever recorded. 12 cents for a roof over his head, 12 cents for a chance at starting over. The horse beneath him, Dusty, a mare with a scar over one eye and a patience born from long trails, snorted against the heat. Elias patted her neck and shifted in the saddle, pulling his canteen for a swallow. Nearly there, girl, he muttered, voice gravelly from silence. Just a shack in the canyon, nothing to be scared of. But Elias himself wasn't convinced. The Dry Creek Canyon, the canyon opened up before him in a jagged scar of red rock and shadow. Cottonwoods leaned along a narrow stream bed, their leaves whispering secrets to the wind. The trail narrowed, curling like a snake between walls of stone. Ravens circled high, their cries sharp against the silence. And there it was. The cabin sat crooked on a rise above the stream, half swallowed by brush and creeping vines. Its roof sagged in the middle, timbers gray as old bones. One shutter flapped against the frame with every gust, banging like a loose coffin lid. Elias dismounted, boots crunching on gravel. He tied Dusty to a leaning post and stood a long while, staring at what he'd bought. Hell of a bargain, he said under his breath. He climbed the creaking step, each one moaning under his weight. The door hung crooked, half off its hinges. Elias shoved it open with his shoulder. The smell hit him first, dust, mildew, and something else. Something sharp, metallic, like iron left too long in the rain. Inside, the gloom was thick. Shafts of dying sunlight spilled through cracks, illuminating the mess-broken chairs, a table with one leg snapped, papers curled with damp, and cobwebs thick as curtains. Mice scurried for their holes. But then he saw it, and his blood went cold. The hanging at the far end of the single room, where the rafters sagged low, a figure swayed gently from a rope tied to the beam. A girl, no woman. Her long black hair spilled down like a river of midnight, brushing against the dusty floor. Her skin was copper-toned, stretched tight over high cheekbones. She wore the tattered remnants of a white dress, torn and stained. But what made Elias freeze wasn't her clothing, nor the cruel rope around her neck. It was her size. She was enormous. Easily 7 feet tall, maybe more, her frame broad but graceful, her limbs corded with muscle even in death. Her bare feet nearly touched the ground, though she hung from the ceiling, toes inches from the dust. She looked both otherworldly and heartbreakingly human. Elias's heart thudded. He stepped closer, revolver sliding free from his holster by instinct. "What in God's name?" he whispered. The woman's face was turned slightly to the side, lips parted as if whispering some last secret. Her skin bore painted markings, faded but still visible, Apache symbols. Elias swallowed hard. Tales came rushing back, stories of giant warriors born from the mountains, guardians of Apache tribes, spirits made flesh. White men dismissed them as myths. But Elias had seen enough on the frontier to know that myths often carried seeds of truth. And here one was, hanging in his damn cabin. He circled slowly, eyes scanning for movement, for the trap this surely must be. But the cabin was silent except for the groan of rafters and the faint squeak of rope. The revolver trembled in his hand. He holstered it, then, gathering his nerve, stepped forward and touched her arm. Warm. His heart lurched. She was alive. Awakening with a sudden gasp, the woman's chest rose. Her eyes snapped open, dark as obsidian, burning with a fire that made Elias stagger back. Her hand shot out, seizing the rope. With terrifying strength, she tore it free from the beam above and collapsed to her knees, coughing, dragging in desperate gulps of air. Elias backed against the wall, hand on his Colt. "Jesus Almighty," he muttered. The woman's head whipped toward him, her gaze locked on his, sharp and fierce, yet clouded with pain. Her voice, when it came, was low, guttural, a mix of Apache tongue and broken English. "You white man," she rasped. "Why here?" Elias steadied himself, every instinct screaming to run, but something in her eyes held him rooted. Not rage, not yet. Something else. "I bought this place," he said slowly. "Didn't know it came with you hanging in it." Her breaths came ragged. She tried to stand, swayed, and braced herself against the table. Even weakened, she towered over him, broad-shouldered, proud, unbroken. "Rope not mine," she said. "They tried kill me?" Ooh, her eyes darkened further as if shadows moved inside them. "Outlaws. White men with black coats. Took me from mountains. Said no one find body here." Elias felt a chill crawl his spine. Black coats. He'd heard whispers in town of a gang that roamed between counties, ruthless, nameless, known only by the long dusters they wore. Men who left no witnesses. And now they'd left her alive. Or maybe they meant to come back. Uneasy alliance. Elias slid the revolver back into its holster. His voice dropped, calm and steady. "You're safe now. Name's Elias Boone. Rancher or trying to be." She stared at him a long moment before answering. "I am Taya," she said finally, pressing a hand to her chest. "Daughter of Nate, last of my family." Elias's eyes narrowed. Nate. The name rang like a hammer blow. Nate was a known Apache leader, son of Cochise himself, feared and respected across the frontier. If she truly was his daughter, then this was no ordinary woman. "I ain't here to harm you, Taya," Elias said carefully. "But if them black coats know you're alive, they'll be back." She straightened, eyes blazing despite her weakness. "Then we fight." To trouble in town. By the time Elias got Taya seated, gave her water from his canteen, and started clearing the dust-choked air from the cabin, the sun had died over the canyon rim. Shadows stretched long and coyotes began to sing in the distance, but Elias's gut churned. He knew better than to stay put. Outlaws didn't leave things half done. "I need supplies," he muttered, half to himself. "Foot ammo. Rope. If we hole up here, we'll need it." Taya's gaze followed him like a hawk. "I come." "You can't," Elias countered. "You're half dead on your feet." Her jaw clenched. For a moment, Elias thought she'd argue, but then her shoulders eased. She nodded once. "Go then? But come back." Her words carried more weight than a plea. They carried trust, the kind a man didn't earn easily. Elias saddled Dusty again and rode for town. The night was deep when he reached Dry Creek, the settlement that clung to the edge of the desert like a stubborn weed. Its main street was a crooked line of saloons, a general store, a jailhouse, and a hotel with more cockroaches than guests. Lanterns flickered through dusty windows. Music and laughter spilled from the Silver Spur Saloon, mingling with the smell of whiskey and sweat. Elias tied Dusty outside the store and stepped inside. The bell over the door jingled, drawing the shopkeep's eyes. A wary man with spectacles perched on his nose. "Oven and Boone," he greeted. "Heard you went and bought that cursed cabin. Westward travels fast." Elias muttered, grabbing flour, jerky, and cartridges. "Fast enough to warn you. Folks say that place is haunted. Apache spirits, outlaw ghosts, take your pick. Ain't a soul lasted a night there since old man Cutler got his throat cut." Elias said nothing, tossing coins on the counter. 12 cents had bought him the cabin, but survival would cost far more. As he turned to leave, the door banged open, and silence fell. 3 men stepped in, long dusters brushing the floor. Their eyes were cold, their boots heavy, black coats. Elias's hand twitched toward his revolver. The tallest of the 3, a gaunt man with a scar running from temple to jaw, grinned. Well, he drawled. "Ain't this something? Elias Boone. Heard you bought yourself a shack in the canyon." Elias didn't answer. The man's grin widened. "Tell me, Boone, you seen anything strange out there?" The store had gone quiet as a grave. The lamplight flickered across glass jars and stacked tins, throwing shadows that danced like ghosts on the shelves. Elias Boone stood rigid, his right hand loose near the worn grip of his Colt, eyes locked on the 3 men in black dusters. The leader, the scar-faced man with a grin that cut like a knife, took a step closer. His boots clicked against the floorboards, slow and deliberate. "Now don't play dumb, Boone," he said, voice smooth as oil but sharp as broken glass. "You've got something that belongs to us. Question is, you hand it over easy or we take it hard." Elias's jaw tightened. He had survived cattle rustlers, Comanche arrows, and the bite of winter storms. He had stared down death more times than he could count. But right now, with the outlaw's eyes drilling into him, he felt the weight of what waited back at that cabin. Taya, Nachi's daughter, the towering Apache girl who had been strung up and left for dead. If these black-coated devils knew she still breathed, blood would spill before dawn. At the first clash, Elias shifted just enough to keep all 3 men in his sight. "Can't say I know what you're talking about," he said evenly. "Cabin's just dust and rot. Ain't nothing there but mice." The outlaw leader chuckled low. The other 2 spread out, one to Elias's left, the other edging toward the counter where the shopkeep stood frozen like a rabbit. "See, that's funny," the scarred man drawled. "Because we left something hanging in that shack. Something real valuable to us. Now either you didn't look too close or you're a damn liar." Elias's hand inched toward his holster. "I'm no liar," he said. "But I ain't in the habit of letting strangers tell me what I seen either." The tension thickened, heavy as the desert heat before a storm. One wrong move and lead would fly. The outlaw's grin vanished. His hand blurred for his revolver. Elias was faster. The Colt roared in the close quarters, thunder shattering the silence. The scarred man staggered back, clutching his shoulder, blood blooming dark against his duster. The other two drew their guns in the same breath, but Elias dove behind a stack of crates as bullets tore through the shop. Glass shattered. Flour bags burst open in white clouds. The shopkeep screamed and hit the floor. Elias fired blind, his shots cracking through the haze. One outlaw cursed and ducked, a bottle exploding behind him. The second flanked hard, boots hammering against the floorboards. Elias rolled, came up on one knee and squeezed the trigger. His bullet caught the outlaw square in the thigh. The man howled, crashing into a barrel of nails that spilled across the floor. The leader, wounded but still standing, snarled, "Kill him." The third man aimed, but Elias was already moving. He barreled forward, shoulder first, smashing into the outlaw and sending his gun skidding across the floor. They went down in a tangle of fists, boots, and curses. Elias drove an elbow into the man's jaw, felt bone crack, then snatched the revolver from his hand and shoved it up under his chin. The store went still again, save for the groans of the wounded. Elias's breath came hard, his eyes locked on the scar-faced leader. "You listen close." Elias growled. "I don't know what you bastards are hunting, and I don't care. But you come sniffing around me again, I'll put you in the dirt permanent." For a long, tense moment, no one moved. Then the leader spat blood, clutching his wound. "This ain't over, Boone," he hissed. "Not by a damn sight." He motioned to the others, limping, bleeding. They stumbled out into the street. Elias lowered the gun slowly, chest heaving. The shopkeep peeked up from behind the counter, eyes wide. "Boone, what in God's name did you just stir up?" Elias holstered his Colt, grabbed his supplies, and headed for the door. "Something bad?" he muttered. "And it's coming fast." A return to the cabin. The ride back through the canyon was darker than pitch, the moon a thin silver blade overhead. Every shadow looked like movement, every rustle like pursuit. Elias pressed Dusty hard, heart pounding with the thought of Taya alone in that cabin. If the outlaws beat him back, she'd never stand a chance in her weakened state. When at last the cabin came into view, Elias slid from the saddle, Colt already in hand. The door creaked as he shoved it open. Inside, the lantern he'd left burning cast a weak glow. And there she was, Taya, standing now, leaning on the table for support, her head snapping up as he entered. Her eyes searched him, reading everything. The sweat, the blood on his sleeve, the hard set of his jaw. "They came?" she asked. Elias nodded. "3 of them, black coats. I put 2 down hard, winged the other. But they'll be back, with more." Her expression tightened, jaw like carved stone. "They want me, because of who I am." Elias set the supplies down, gaze narrowing. "Then it's time you tell me, Taya, the truth. What in hell makes you worth hunting?" The truth of Taya. She sank slowly onto the chair, the wood groaning under her weight. For a moment her eyes drifted toward the dying embers in the hearth, as if gathering courage from the fire. "My father," she said at last, voice low, steady. "Nachi, son of Coaches. You know this name?" Elias nodded grimly. "Every man west of the Pecos knows it. Apache leader, a fighter." Taya's gaze hardened with pride. "I am his blood, but more than that. My mother was not Apache, she was different, a woman of the mountains. Some say she was spirit-born, taller, stronger than other women. When I was born, the tribe knew I was not like others. Too tall, too strong. They called me Taya. It means towering one." Elias studied her, the firelight casting shadows across her powerful frame. The size, the strength, it all made sense. "But why are they after you?" He pressed, her eyes darkened. "Because I am last. My people were hunted, driven into the hills, the deserts. My father gone, my mother gone. Only I remain, and with me the last memory of the old ways. The black coats, they are not just outlaws. They are hunters, men paid by land barons, by army men who want all Apache dead. If I live, the story lives. If I die, the story ends." Elias felt the weight of her words settle heavy in his chest. She wasn't just a woman on the run. She was a living symbol. Killing her wasn't about blood. It was about erasing history. And now, by sheer chance or fate, she had landed in his cabin. He leaned back, rubbing a hand over his face. "So if I stand with you, I'm putting a target on my back the size of Texas." Taya's gaze met his, fierce, unyielding. "Yes." A long silence stretched between them. Then Elias nodded once. "Then I reckon I best load my rifle." The siege, they worked through the night, setting what defenses they could. Elias braced the windows with old planks, stacked furniture against the door, and checked his ammunition twice. Taya, though still weak, fashioned a spear from a broken table leg and sharpened it with the edge of Elias's hunting knife. By dawn, the canyon was quiet. Too quiet. Elias peered through a crack in the shutter. The morning sun painted the rocks in blood-red light. And there, moving like shadows against the stone, came the black coats. Not 3 this time. A dozen. They moved with the patience of wolves, rifles glinting in the sun, eyes cold as death. Elias's heart hammered. He turned to Taya. They're here. She rose to her full, towering height, spear in hand. Her presence filled the cabin, fierce and unbreakable. Then we fight, she said simply. The first shots cracked through the canyon. Bullets slammed into the cabin walls. Splinters flying. Elias returned fire, his Winchester bucking against his shoulder. One outlaw fell, screaming, clutching his chest. The siege had begun. The fire and fury, the battle raged through the morning. Outlaws circled, firing from cover, their bullets tearing through wood and glass. Elias shot until his rifle was hot, until his ears rang with the thunder of gunfire. Taya fought like something out of legend. When one outlaw burst through the door, she caught him by the throat, lifted him like a child, and hurled him across the room. Her spear flashed, striking with bone, breaking force. Even wounded, she was a storm, but numbers told. By midday the cabin was half shattered, smoke choking the air. Elias was bleeding from a graze on his arm, his ammo running low. And still they came. The scar-faced leader stood among them, his arm bandaged, his grin wicked despite the blood on his shirt. He raised his rifle and shouted, "Burn them out." A flame soon licked at the cabin's dry timbers, smoke billowing thick. Elias coughed, eyes stinning. He turned to Taya, who stood tall despite the chaos. "We can't hold," he shouted. "We run or we die here." She met his eyes, then nodded once. Together, they smashed through the back wall, stumbling into the canyon's shadows as the cabin collapsed in fire behind them. The final stand, the outlaws pursued, their shouts echoing through the canyon. Elias and Taya ran hard, lungs burning, feet pounding the earth. Bullets sparked off the rocks around them. They reached a narrow ridge, the ground falling away into a sheer drop. Trapped, Elias raised his Colt, jaw set. Taya planted her spear in the dirt beside him, her towering frame unbroken. The black coats closed in, rifles leveled. The scar-faced leader stepped forward, eyes blazing with triumph. "This is it, Boone. Hand her over, and maybe I'll let you live." Elias spat in the dust. "Go to hell." The leader's grin widened. "Then die with her." The outlaws raised their rifles. But before they could fire, a thunderous cry split the canyon. Figures appeared on the cliffs above, Apache warriors, their faces painted, bows drawn. Dozens of them. They had come like ghosts, silent and swift, answering a call older than the canyon itself. Arrows rained down, cutting through the outlaws. Men screamed, dropped their guns, scattered in panic. The scar-faced leader spun in shock. "No, this ain't possible." Taya's voice rose above the chaos, strong and fierce. "My people are not gone," she declared. "Their spirit lives." She charged, spear flashing. The leader barely raised his rifle before she drove it through his chest, pinning him to the earth. The canyon fell into silence save for the cries of the dying. The black coats were no more. Epilogue: by sunset, the battle was done. The Apache warriors gathered around Taya, bowing their heads with reverence. She stood tall among them, a symbol of survival, of the unbroken spirit of her people. Elias watched, wary, bloodied, yet strangely at peace. Taya turned to him, her obsidian eyes softening. "You saved me," she said. Elias shook his head. "No, we saved each other." For a long moment, they stood in silence, the canyon bathed in golden light, the fire of the fallen cabin still smoldering in the distance. The land was harsh, unforgiving. The frontier had no mercy, but in that moment, Elias knew he had found something worth more than a dozen cabins, worth more than all the gold in the West. He had found a truth that could not be burned, beaten, or buried, and it would live as long as men told stories beneath the wide, wild sky.